Order of Merit. Gary Abbott, when you were hired at USA Wrestling in 1988, you were actually in this building.
Yeah. I spent a month in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and I had an office which isn't there anymore. I think I could find the 10 square feet or wherever my desk was, but it's this the whole hall has changed so many times since I was here that I just kind of walk over behind the desk over there and say I used to work right here. I spent a month here, and we then moved up to Colorado Springs. So Mary Beth Powers and I were the only employees that are still with USA Wrestling that actually worked in this building as a staff member. So it's, my career with USA Wrestling started right here in Stillwater, right in this building.
When you work in the media, and those of us that have done this for so long know it, we're not the story.
No, we tell the stories, or we listen and we do our best to share. That's kind of what we do. Watch, listen, and wrestling's a great sport. You don't really have to embellish it. You just need to tell people what happened, and people that figure out and pay attention learn to love it, and then you have a chance to help build it, and that's what we've been trying to do for 3 decades,
You walk around, even pre-renovation, post-renovation, you walk around the Hall of Fame. Your fingerprints are all over this building, whether it be the winners of the Dellinger Award, which goes to Amateur Wrestling News' Writer of the Year. You've won it, the ASICS posters that the first team, you helped create that team, the media awards, the recognition, the committees that get people in here. When the time finally comes that you got the phone call, explain that feeling. What was that like? Who told you that you were going in?
I don't know. Here's the deal. We're 2 years after getting inducted, right? Mm-hmm. So, I think it was Leroy, and I think Rich already knew, Rich Bender. But, and then I hear the backstory that Taylor Miller and Rich Bender went and put it in there, and that it was the first time I was nominated, and I got in that year, So I was humbled and honored, and I still am. It's no different, but it was not expected. It never was something I thought about. But when they told me about it, I was looking forward to having the opportunity to do this weekend, and it took us 18 months, but we're getting it done, right?
This weekend is also, it's special to you, not because you're going in, but every year, this has been, kind of almost a pilgrimage to Mecca for you. You go in, you chronicle those going in, whether it be the Outstanding Official, Order of Merit, the Distinguished Members.
Yeah, I've interviewed
this has been your weekend, and now you got interviewed by one of your direct reports. You're sitting there doing a podcast by one of your former direct reports. Like, the tables have turned for you here. What's it like?
Yeah, I'm not used to this, but I enjoy it. It's fun. It's like, you couldn't imagine what it's like to go in until you're doing it. I could fighting back tears just having Sandy read my stuff. Now, I wasn't too good at that, but every person that I've worked with along the way at USA Wrestling, but also within the wrestling media. We're a big family, right? None of us are, it's not something you do if you really want to be rich or famous. You don't stay in wrestling if that's your goal. So we're all a team together, and we've worked together, and we've done a lot of fun and interesting things and traveled the world. And for me to be in the Hall of Fame and see people go in, when I was there and wrote about it, or I interviewed them when they came off the mat at the Olympics, and I go back to '88. I was with John and Kenny when they won in Seoul, and so, and all these people have been inducted. And this year's even better because I go in with 3 other USA Wrestling folks. Bill Zadek, who's our current national coach, and I work with him, and Bruce Burnett. We spent 20 years almost working together at USA Wrestling, and Drew Meal Byers, who, one of our great Greco heroes, but was in Colorado Springs. It's like, it wasn't like he was one of the athletes that we'd see once in a while. Byers was part of our life all the time, right? So we got to be part of him. And to have some USA Wrestling people also going in really means a lot,
Again, talking about the fingerprints, even before you became known for your role at USA Wrestling, which Sandy broke down, you've probably had more title changes than anybody in that building. Whether anything new, I won't give it to Gary. Special projects. That's the title.
I don't know whether I'm trying to remember. I think it was Bender threw that one on me, which meant anything that we want someone to stick their nose in and work on, and doesn't have to be specific to one department. Gary can handle, and I like it. That's how I got involved with things like women's wrestling or beach wrestling or Title IX, or the development of the women's college wrestling, where we had to get the emerging sports status document put together. So I can't say that sometimes that's difficult, because it's not in areas that are, well, it takes work, right? But it's beyond just the communications, right? I sometimes think that my efforts in women's wrestling are things I take more pride in than maybe all the great communications opportunities I've had, and all the different things I've done to promote sport is to help build a sport, But yeah, no, I mean, still am willing to take on a challenge, and I'll work hard at it and give it my best. And I luckily understand wrestling and wrestling people. So it's not as difficult for me to try to sell something, because I've been around it so much. It's part of my life. It's a passion for me.
A couple years ago, I think it might have been the last time we were all here, Carl Adams went in.
Yeah, that was. It was the last induction before COVID. Yeah.
And your media career started with Carl in a magazine called Wrestling Masters, and that's one of the things that, if you look around, that you've got them here at the hall, but right now people just say, oh, it was Amateur Wrestling News, and after that was Win. There were a couple publications in there, and talk a little bit about Wrestling Masters.
So I graduated BU in 1982, and I wanted to be a journalist, a political reporter, and I couldn't get hired. There was a recession going on. There wasn't a lot of work for rookie reporters, and I was living in my parents' house, and Carl said, hey, he starts a ton of wrestling businesses, and he wanted to do a magazine, and invited me back to Boston. I went up there, and I stayed at Carl's house for a while. We were roommates. We put this thing together and kicked it off in 1983. And we were able to put out a pretty darn good magazine for 5 years, but we never got the business part of it down to the extent where, we could sustain it, right? But during that time, Carl went and introduced me to everyone in wrestling. I was 22 years old or 21, and he's in the Hall of Fame for a reason, right? Everyone knew and loved Carl Adams, respected him, and he basically introduced me to the sport of wrestling as part of that magazine. And he also got me hooked up with the Coaches Association that let me do some PR work for him. So, Carl got me started on my USA Wrestling career. But also, everything else about him was first class. So when he was able to come in here, obviously we're both pissed off about BU dropping wrestling, because that's where I wrestled, and that's where he spent 30 years of his great coaching career. I just think it's excellent that, back-to-back inductions have Boston University people involved. And I was here for Carl. It was a joy to see him go in, and with some of our old friends come by, and it was fun.
You talk about those old friends. One thing, over the course of wrestling, a lot of programs have that brotherhood. A lot of people have that brotherhood. They keep their friends for life. It seems like with programs like BU, and especially if people of your generation, it's like you guys never left. You got your friends together here with the team photo, but you could just see that camaraderie as something that you go back 40 years.
Wrestling's a family, and you don't have to see everyone every year. You can still get together with them, and you still share. My assistant coach from BU, Scott Pacino's here, and he was an All-American at Rhode Island, and for a year he was a coach at BU and helped me out, and then he was one of the writers. He wrote Scotty's Corner fitness training article for Wrestling Masters, and he's come down from Chicago, and I haven't seen him in a long time, although we communicate often. But it's just joyous to be together with people that at any point of your journey were important to you, right? So I've got people that are important to my journey right now that are here, including a lot of my family, but also people in the early years, right? So I don't know. It's pretty overwhelming.
On the I don't want to say back half, because you still got plenty of time left, but on the most recent part of your career, where your family and your career meld, is when you met Pat.
Yeah, it's a great story. I mean, my first wife passed away, and then I was able to meet Pat Fox, who was a pairing official and the junior person of the year for USA Wrestling, and we got along pretty well and decided that we were going to get married. And she's got a wrestling family. Her son was a national champ at the prep school level and wrestled Division I. And, I didn't have to explain wrestling to her. She put up with all of my travel and all of my crazy hours and all that because she understood and loved wrestling. So, we shared a lot of wrestling together, but we also, I think that it was really helpful for me to have that kind of love and support. It's not easy to do what you and I do, right? There's a lot of long hours and there's a lot of travel. And if your family supports what you're doing, it's a whole lot easier to do well at it, And Pat's a great wrestling person, and she makes jokes that the only time we've ever fight was over wrestling, and it's nothing else, right? But, she major impact in the sport herself. She was the Woman of the Year for USA Wrestling, very active for a while, including being involved with women's wrestling development. So, she's part of me being here, let's put it that way. But, I didn't have to tell her what I was doing and why, which was great.
Prior to this, there was the tribute. It used to be a tribute breakfast that they instituted a couple years ago. This year we had to do it via Zoom. And one thing that struck me is something I'd said, and I went back and I thought about it after I'd said it about you. And it goes back to the conversation we shared that went in the wee hours of the morning. You're somebody that you don't will your ideas upon somebody unless they ask for them. It's like if you want help, you will offer help. You're not going to say, hey, I think you should do it this way, unless you're doing it wrong. I mean, that line between letting somebody make their own mistakes and come to you for assistance versus telling somebody this is how I do it and it's how the way you do it, that's not the way you've operated. So how do you basically, when somebody asks you for your advice, say, all right, good, here comes the floodgates? I mean, it's something
Well, no, I'll tell people what I
years.
think, and I've actually done it a lot lately. It's been a tough time for me and for wrestling since this COVID thing, and we're going to have to do a lot to continue to get our sport where we need to go. But if somebody is willing to ask my opinion, I'm going to be absolutely honest with them because they had the respect and the love and the interest about hearing what I had to say. But, I believe that as long as you do your best, and you're willing to listen and learn, you can be successful. But occasionally you need somebody to help you out. If I can help somebody out, I've had a lot of people help me out, right? I haven't always been right, and especially now with technology and things, I still have to learn from people often much younger than me and less experienced who have other ways of doing things. So if I can assist, if someone's willing to ask me, I will tell them exactly what I think, and usually it comes out okay, but I will be honest. Yeah, absolutely.
You've seen world championships. I think they said last counts 38 straight Division I championships.
Yeah, until I missed the last two. So we're done at 38. I was trying to get 50, but, with COVID year, they canceled it. And then this year I was not fully vaccinated, and with some health issues, I couldn't travel. So I didn't get to go to this year's, the one where they didn't have very many people there. But I watched it. I just saw it through the media, but I wasn't there. But
yeah, what was that experience like, actually watching a championship on TV?
Well, I've worked harder not on site than I do on site. I didn't go to the Olympic trials, and I did more work that weekend than I would have done if I were down in Fort Worth. So it's just you just find a different way to support the people on site. On site, you have to put hands on and make sure it all works. When you're back here, you're supporting what other people are doing. It was a good learning experience, actually, but I think we got a lot more done with me not having to deal with people and just deal with specific tasks. So it was weird, but I enjoyed it. I can't wait to get back to the NCAA tournament next year, but, we've all been through some weird experiences in the last 2 years. And for me, it was weird that I couldn't be at the NCAAs or the Olympic trials, but I was working the whole time. I was as busy as if I was still there,
Circling back on, because we've known each other 20 plus years. We're not going to get everything in 20 plus minutes. The order of merit. You look at the past winners. They've come from all walks of life in this sport, but there's also been members of the media that have won this thing, like Ron Good, for example, has got it. Jess Hoke's typewriters over there. He founded Amateur Wrestling.
I was going to bring one of my old typewriters, but I left it at home. I was joking with Jack Carnivix. I used to have that portable typewriter I would bring with me, and then a fax machine. before they invented computers. So I still got one of those. It's a great award. I'll tell you, the Order of Merit means a lot to me because it was voted on by the distinguished members. So the 200 distinguished members, all the people that are alive, vote every year on this award. So the people that are actually honored by the Hall of Fame picked me to be part of the family. So that's very meaningful. That part of the Order of Merit, people don't realize that unless you learn about it, that it wasn't just some committee that picked you, it was actual Hall of Famers. So I must have made an impact on their lives if they're going to tell me that I'm welcome to their family.
I mean, with those that are still with us, so you can probably go through. You probably covered, I'd say, probably 75-80% of them at some point, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I started doing wrestling coverage when I was in high school, but I wasn't doing the senior level stuff. But right out of college, I started the magazine in 1983. So anyone, and we did historic stuff with older athletes then. So, not just the current athletes in the 80s, but I got to talk to coaches and athletes going back a few decades. So, most of the people that have been recently inducted, I've been a part of their journey a little bit, right? I know them. Mm-hmm. Right, except for some of these other awards, like the Outstanding American, a few of those, and then I get a joy of meeting some new people. So, but yeah, no, it's the Order of Merit. It's because I'm not ever going to get in the Hall of Fame for my wrestling. I was a Division I wrestler with a winning record, but I never even made the NCAA tournament. I never made the high school state tournament. I did some coaching. I was a coach at a junior high, a high school, and I did some volunteer coaching at college. But, I'm no Bill Zadok or Bruce Burnett. I mean, I'm in the Hall of Fame for what I could do off the mat rather than on the mat. So it's very meaningful.
With that long career, it's not slowing down. What's next for you? What else can you accomplish?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, I still have never gotten a wrestler on the cover of Sports Illustrated, even though no one reads it anymore. I mean, it's not.
Wait, you weren't around with Dan Hodge? No, just kidding.
I was born in 60, and he got in at, 57?
57, April 1st, 1957.
Yeah, see, I knew the year. I didn't know the exact date. I don't remember numbers like you do anymore, Jason, but no, I mean, yeah, there's a lot more we can do. USA Wrestling has an opportunity. Obviously, with the growth of women's wrestling, there's a ton of things that are going to come up in the next 5-10 years that I'm going to be a part of. And I still want to make sure that everyone's aware of what happens this summer in Tokyo and also what's going to happen in Paris, and then tell the stories of the young athletes, too. And hopefully the things I learned I can pass on to other people. And when I'm done and retired, which I plan to do someday, we'll have people that are going to take whatever work we did and take it way beyond what we ever did. So, just do my best to continue to build upon the legacy that we've had for the last 30 years, right?
I want to get one story out of you. A lot of people remember you chasing down Jordan Burroughs at the Olympic trials in Carver Hawkeye. So running stadiums is nothing new to you. I want to know, what was the strangest thing you had to do to track down an athlete in a moment like that in your career?
Well, back in the day, I always wanted a quote from each person during the Olympics or during a major event, and it was before that they had video and all that, so the only one who could get the quote was me. And I did a few interviews. I did a few interviews with athletes in saunas. And then there was the one Dave Schultz lost at the finals of the World Championships in Toronto and didn't want to talk to the media, but he said, "I'll talk to you, Gary." And I was the one that gave his quote after he got beat in the finals by the Korean. Just because the athlete was one of our greats, trusted in me and was willing to do it, although he didn't want to talk to anybody else. So those are the kind of ones you remember. Bruce Baumgartner had a loss, and the media caught up with his wife, and I got her out of there. And, there were just little things that aren't kind of like things you would think of that, meant a lot because people were able to trust me to help and be part of the deal. But sauna interviews, you don't do them anymore. Whereas somebody, you need a quote, but you're not going to bring a reporter into a sauna, so you go get them a quote, right? I did that quite a bit early in my career.
This weekend's been part of your life for quite a long time. Now it's your weekend. Order of Merit recipient Gary Abbott, congratulations.
Thanks, Jason. You're the man. I appreciate it.